Employees of Build-A-Bear. What is the weirdest thing a customer has requested? Back in the earlier Build-A-Bear days, I was asked to put an urn that contained the ashes of their father who had recently passed from cancer into the bear. I didn't know what to say and my manager was on break. They were really sweet and I completed the task for them. They also had previously recorded his voice, so that also went into the teddy. 20 minutes later, when my manager returned, I informed her of what happened and how I handled it. And within the next few months, we had a store policy of no deceased remains. Looking back on it, I'm happy I could do it for them. They even dressed it like him and had planned to have it on the mantle for the family and grandchildren to press the hand and hear him.
We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description.
Story 2. I worked there in high school about 10 years ago now. I guess the weirdest thing, but was very common, was putting dead relatives' recorded voices into stuffed animals. One was for a little girl whose father had died in Iraq. I was definitely crying while I sewed that bear up. Other than that, there were a few bronies that came in for Rainbow Dash. They were always very awkward, but nice. Story 3. Watching a teenage girl make a bear dressed like her boyfriend for her boyfriend while he was there. I have never seen someone try so hard to look interested but failing. Teenage love, I guess. The weirdest thing is all the middle-aged women who come in every time anything new is released. They collect them, but they are always super weird people. Story 4. Wasn't an employee, but I was there for this story. So I was there getting a Build-A-Bear for my friend for their birthday. I was going to make it full of inside jokes and a few light inappropriate jokes. In front of me was a guy with a bear that looked like he actually put some thought into it. I was standing behind him when he did his recording. He was nice and cool, then he grabbed the mic. I thought he was going to say something nice because he told the guy working there that it was for his girlfriend. Here's how this guy started his recording. "Hey there, fatty. I know you're screwing with Roberto, you frickin' skank. You frickin' cow." Keep in mind, he's screaming this in a store full of young children. The employee didn't stop him because I assume he was too scared that he would probably rip his throat out if he intervened. Parents scrambling to cover their kids' ears. The guy did this for I think a minute, but it felt like an eternity. After getting his voice box sewn into the bear, he practically skipped out of the store happy as a clam. I know why he did it. I'm sure he planned out a nice date with her and then would give her the bear and crush her world. But this guy was yelling at the top of his lungs. When I made a dirty joke, I was at least quiet so the kids behind me didn't hear. Everyone wanted to unalive him, but they were also too scared to stop him. Not really weird, but everyone was speechless in that Build-A-Bear. That is one creative way to tell someone that you know they're cheating. That is like #1 petty revenge, and I guarantee that during the relationship, the girl had told him it's like, "Oh, I would love a Build-A-Bear," or something like that. So now that this happened, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you a Build-A-Bear." Story 5. I worked there for almost 5 years back in the early 2000s. Once, there was a woman who came in with her son's monkey and asked for a hole to be stitched up. This was common and we all knew how to do a basic ladder stitch, so my manager agreed to do it. When she took it in the back, she noticed that there were holes only in the crotch of the monkey, and that the fur was matted. That's when she realized that this woman's son was probably banging the doll. I don't remember if my manager put on gloves and stitched it or offered the woman a new doll, but that was by far the craziest request. I also once had to get into that bear costume after someone wore it for 2+ hours because a woman complained that her son wanted to meet the bear and we packed up 10 minutes early. That sucked really bad. The mother had to have known, right? Like, how? Oh no. Just oh no. Story 6. Not an employee, but at the one in the mall near me, the employees told me a lady would come in with her pet monkey that she treated as her child. She used it as a clothing store for the monkey. She also tried to sue the local school district into letting the monkey attend, but was unsuccessful. Story 7. Not weird, but heartbreaking. Had an older woman come in and she requested 5 bears, each with a personalized voice box. She was in the late stages of cancer and was getting a bear for each of her grandkids, with a different message to each one to remember her by. This next one is potentially heartbreaking, ultimately awkward, and traumatizing for those involved. A coworker used to work in a different store, and one day a person came in, picked a bear, and sort of faffed about a while, before taking it to be stuffed. Coworker puts bear on the machine, hits the pedal, and is covered in a cloud of dust along with the guest and the store. Turns out the person had poured their late partner's ashes inside the bear and not said anything. Tip: if you want to put ashes in a Build-A-Bear, get a little urn and put some ashes into that. And then put that into the bear. Loose ash equals bad. Story 8. A native family wanted to put a real bear tooth inside the bear. It was for a newborn. I made sure to check the sharpness of the tooth so it wouldn't puncture the fabric. Nothing weird with that job, though. Although there was a time when this old drunk guy walked by the store and tried to grab a little girl near the entrance. A father intervened and got her back, but people were more bewildered by this guy doing it so obviously rather than actually getting upset. I hated the store's music though, kids singing hit songs. I hated the chipper face/voice we had to put on, and I hated handling the fluff when refilling it. I've never actually been in a Build-A-Bear. Do they just play Kids Bop like 24/7? That sounds even more torturous than working retail during Christmas. Story 9. Not an employee, but a few years ago I went with my little sister to get some horse thing done, and we were waiting in line to do the heart thing where you have to kiss it and promise to love the thing forever. The girl in front of us asked the lady doing the hearts if her bear was gay because it was rainbow. The employee looked a bit taken back, but recovered and told her that the bear could be gay if she wanted. And in the most lethal voice I have ever heard out of a small child, she said, "If you give him a gay heart, I'll rip it out myself and feed it to the wolves." Haunts me to this day. Story 10. I worked at Build-A-Bear for 2-ish years. I just recently quit this past April. People put a lot of things in their stuffed animals. Voices of deceased relatives were a popular one. I don't think that's weird though, we all grieve in our own ways, and hey, if a bear with Uncle Ted's voice in it comforts you, whatever. The people who really weirded me out were the people who didn't want anything. Not just no sounds or smells or whatever. I get that crap's expensive and adds up quickly. I worked there and I couldn't afford a decked out teddy bear. I mean, no fabric heart for the heart ceremony, no birth certificate, no box, nothing. All of which were encouraged and free. I want you to remember something. This is Build-A-Bear. You are buying a $30 teddy bear for your kid. You can go literally anywhere else for a stuffed animal for half the price. Build-A-Bear is about the experience of making the bear, customizing it, and taking it home for your kid to have their own custom and personal furry friend. Yes, that is what we have to call them. Why the frick are you paying $30 for a random stuffed animal? Why are you doing this? What the frick is wrong with you? At least put a fabric heart in, dude. It's free. It's literally free to put a cute little heart with a wish for your child. It makes no sense and to this day frustrates me, because to me there's no better way to say, I don't give a crap about what I'm getting my child for Christmas, than that. Also, as a bonus, people who are super weird with gendering their kids' stuffed animals weirded me the frick out. It's a teddy bear, Kyle. Your daughter can give it a tiara and call it Michael Jackson if she wants. Story 12. I worked at Build-A-Bear for 8 years. It was honestly a pretty great job. The weirdest request I ever got was a woman brought in a moose. Not our brand. It was a gift from her boyfriend and her children had ripped the head clean off. She wanted to know if we could fix it. I was one of the better ones at sewing, so the manager brought it to me. I told the woman I would do my best, and I was able to get the head back on. I returned it to the woman and she said it looked as good as new. One day we had a kindergarten teacher drag in this huge Eeyore stuffed animal that the kids love. It had gone flat over the years and smelled and looked just gross. We actually opened it up and refilled it. The smell as the air and stuffing went into it was awful. Sewed it back up and sent her on her way. We had multiple people come in to put pacifiers in the bear to break their little one of the habit. One particular mom did that, and then came back 3 days later and had us open it up and remove it. The saddest was the woman who put a mini urn of her parents' ashes inside. Anyway, those are the ones that stick out to me. Story 13. My girlfriend and I were probably the weirdest group of the day at our local Build-A-Bear. We went to Build-A-Bear for her birthday and the promotional live-action Lion King bears were on sale, so we decided to get the ugly live-action Pumbaa bear. He is an absolute unit with lazy eyes and an evil smile. He knows the sins he's committed and he is not remorseful. Anyway, we dressed him in nothing but a cowboy hat and Marvel boxers, and then named him Charles Entertainment Cheese. Oh, and his voice box is also the Super Mario theme. I like to imagine that when I die, the only thing that will be there is just his face in an endless void, while the Super Mario theme plays ominously in the background for eternity. The employees were super helpful, but were obviously a little uncomfortable at how hard we were laughing at the creation of our stupid son. Story 13. I interviewed for them last year. My hair was a very light blonde, but I had dark roots, so it was easy to tell it wasn't my natural color. Although it was a very natural color. My interviewer asked me if I could dye it black because it was unnatural and parents would throw a fit. I told her it wouldn't be possible because it took me months to get that blonde. She then proceeded to write the number 1 on a piece of paper. This is what I have graded your interview on a scale of 1 to 5. I didn't say anything and just walked out. All because I didn't want to dye my hair black. Oh, and the hours? 10 hours a week while I went to school. I think it's so funny when random retail stores are that strict about what their employees look like. Like, nowadays there are people who do commercial work, like who are on camera in commercials and have like tattoos that 10 or so years ago people would have been like, you'll never find a job with that. And here they are representing a company with their face. Isn't that crazy? It's almost like it doesn't really matter? Of course, if they had like a shirt on or something that was inappropriate for children, sure, but like just a hair color, get over it. Story 14. I worked at Build-A-Bear Workshop for 7 years, and I don't know that any requests were super weird. We put recordings of deceased relatives, recordings of fetal heartbeats, pacifiers, and squeakers from dog toys and animals. Okay, that last one might be a bit strange, but the rest were usually very sweet and touching moments, and sometimes exciting the kiddo who was graduating from their pacifier. I did get called a lot of names when the holidays rolled around and we were out of the holiday animals. No longer an issue since Maxine retired, and everything was produced in ridiculous quantities instead of limited ones. I was often asked to produce products that we didn't have in stock, but that's retail. I think the weirdest experiences were helping kids dress their animals. Some folks have interesting choices in outfits. I remember one little bear left our store in a tank top, undies, and heels, with bows on the ears, of course. The owner of said bear was a 6-year-old girl, but she stayed within her budget. I actually loved working there, and if I had any free time or ever needed extra money, I'd probably go back. Story 15. Not an employee, but I read a story about someone coming with one of their young relatives while they were doing the Eevee thing. And when the relative asked OP what to name the Eevee, he responded with Sam, which got some looks from the employee handling the Eevee afterwards. The employee said to them, "I know what you did." Sam is the name of the main protagonist in a adult comic. Sam is also an Eevee in that comic. What? Story 16. Not an employee, but I have a somewhat related story. I have extreme anxiety, but was determined to get my girlfriend, now ex, a Build-A-Bear for Valentine's Day. I went to the shop and picked out everything for the bear, including the voice box, which had "I love you" pre-recorded. Went to stuff the bear, and the woman, who is a very sweet older lady, wanted to see what I picked out for the voice. So she played it in a very busy shop. She played it once and said, "Aw, I love it," and played it again, and again, and again, and again. By this point, I had everyone in the shop looking at me, wondering why someone keeps triggering the voice. Panic attack nearly sets in at that moment. Just wanted to stuff that bear and get out. Story 17. Obligatory, not an employee, but a customer. Visited Build-A-Bear for the first time at the age of 24 and was far too excited and also too old for it, I suppose. But as you're about to find out, my level of maturity wasn't that high. The shop assistant, bear builder, told me I could put a voice recording in it. I nearly lost it. I had no idea that was an option. Said all I had to do was say my chosen phrase into this little microphone. And the machine stressed you didn't even have to do it loudly because it's a special microphone. So I decided I wanted my bear to say the F word, but like how a dog says it in a meme video. I felt safe because the shop was loud and the children in the line behind me won't hear me say it, right? Right? Well, the machine repeated my recording back to me, loud enough for the kids behind me to hear. I nearly died. My boyfriend at the time, now husband, and his friend nearly died. The children behind me were irreparably scarred, I'm sure. And that's the story of how I have an Eevee plushie that smells like cupcakes and says the F word. Story 18. I worked at Build-A-Bear for a few months when I was at uni, and it was great. I didn't find anything super weird as I worked in a new store and wasn't there very long, but I just found the amount of money people would fork out for the latest bear absolutely insane. We had a kid who was a huge brat, pulling things off shelves, crying and shouting when his parents said no. His bear ends up about 70 pounds. Then the next day, the mom comes back in, saying how her son wants some different boots and skates for his chase bear, and doesn't like the ones they bought. She didn't bring any of the tags in or a receipt though, so I just handed her off to the manager because I did not want to deal with that. My favorite ones were a couple and their toddler. The mom was pregnant and they were making a bear for baby-to-be. Their son was so excited that he got to kiss the heart that went into his future sibling's bear, and it was just so adorable. Overall, a great place to work. Would recommend if you don't hate kids. Story 19. A woman had come into the store. I was the only person on as the opening manager, and Charmander had just come out that morning. I was understandably busy and was helping a large needy family when I noticed a woman come into the store. I went up to greet her and I let her know that I was almost done and she would have my undivided attention. This woman was in rough shape. She looked like she was fresh out of the hospital. Battered, bruised, cut up, and stitched back together. She seemed distracted and upset, so I assured her I'd be no more than a couple minutes and to look at the options. I finally finished with the others and started talking to her. It turned out her and her husband and child were hit by a drunk driver coming home from a movie that weekend, and her husband didn't make it. We were both a weepy mess, and all she wanted was a bear with a saved Snapchat video of him singing a silly little song he made up for her. We charged her shattered phone a bit from my power bank and got the sound in. Going through the heart ceremony, it felt like I was performing a memorial service for her. We We wrapped the heart with a bit of his favorite t-shirt and sewed it up. The bear was dressed in Chicago's Bears gear, and we made a birth certificate. After checkout, she asked if she could come back to add his ashes, and I had to tell her I could get in a lot of trouble, but showed her a video of our stitching method and gave her a length of needle and thread to attempt on her own. She gave me a long, teary hug and left so much happier. I know it may not be the weirdest story, but I'll never forget her. That kind of day makes me love working at Build-A-Bear. Story 20. Not me, but a coworker. We had a younger teen come in that got one of our troll dolls, and they made it very clear that they wanted the butt to be as firm and prominent as possible. We just figured they were, discovering new things in life. Other than that, we don't usually see too many weird requests. Then there are the people who you are convinced are using their furry friends during more adult activities, but that's about it. Story 21. Oh god, I worked there a lifetime ago, around 2000 or so. I loved that job. One of the weirdest things was when a customer brought a pet's ashes in a little plastic baggie. I was no longer surprised by the ashes thing, but I was really surprised when they asked me to sew the baggie of ashes to the outside of the stuffed cat. I really can't remember if this is 100% true, but I think I passed off that customer to my manager. Mostly because I can't sew that well. Another one. My store was in a fairly large mall in suburban New York, and it was a fairly popular stop for some touring events. I remember when Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd stopped by to promote their Sacred Hearts blues band, and my store manager authorized us to make a teddy bear and dress it like a blues brother. But only one teddy bear. To share between the two of them, I guess? I was celebrity starstruck when I presented it to them, but looking back on the old Polaroid I have of the moment, the weary, confused looks from both of them will always stick out in my mind.